Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most creative companies on the entire planet, Pixar. But we're not just here to talk about their hit movies. We're diving deep into the very engine that powers their success, using Ed Catmull's amazing book, Creativity Inc., as our map. We're going to unpack how Pixar built a culture that could not only survive success, but actually get stronger because of it. And it all starts with a crisis that absolutely nobody saw coming. So picture this. It's 1995. Toy Story is a global sensation, a total game changer. For Ed Catmull, Pixar's president, you'd think this would be the best moment of his life, right? A dream he'd been chasing for 2 decades finally came true. But it wasn't. Instead of feeling on top of the world, he just felt empty, lost. He'd spent his entire career building this incredible train and laying the tracks. And now that the train had finally left the station, he was left wondering, okay, now what? This quote really captures that feeling. It's a crisis, not a failure, but of what happens after you get everything you ever want. And this right here, this is the big question that drives the whole book. See, the problem wasn't making one great film. The real challenge, the much harder one, was figuring out how to build a place that could make great films over and over and over again. It wasn't about a single win. It was about creating a creative culture that could last. Catmull realized that his first goal, making the first computer-animated movie, it was finished. He needed a new goal, an infinite one, something that could keep him and everyone at Pixar fired up for the long haul. It's the difference between winning one championship and building a dynasty. So that brings us to Catmull's new mission, what you could call the goal after the goal. His new focus wasn't just on making movies anymore. It was to build a sustainable, thriving creative culture that could actually outlive him, John Lasseter, and Steve Jobs. To do that, he had to become a detective, to find and dismantle all the invisible forces that quietly kill creativity in most organizations. So, how on earth did he pull it off? Well, that's what the rest of this is all about. Okay, so if you're going to build this legendary creative culture, where do you even start? Well, Catmull's first huge insight was that you have to fiercely protect your most valuable and also your most fragile asset, brand new ideas. And at Pixar, they have this absolutely brilliant term for them. They call them ugly babies. An ugly baby is that first spark of an idea, a rough draft, a clumsy prototype, a new story concept. It's not pretty. It's not polished. It's awkward, it's incomplete, and yeah, it's kind of ugly. And because of that, it's incredibly vulnerable. It can't stand up for itself yet. And if you throw it into the harsh light of criticism too early, it's just going to die. So the entire system at Pixar was basically redesigned around this one simple question. How do we build a safe incubator for these ugly babies to survive and grow into something beautiful?
This next part is all about creating that safe space. Because, the main problem in most creative places isn't that they lack ideas. The problem is that the company's day-to-day operations, the schedules and the budgets, are basically set up to crush new, unproven things. True creativity isn't just about someone having a eureka moment. It's about building a system that doesn't immediately shut that eureka moment down. It's a game of patience, trust, and a whole lot of nurturing.
To explain this internal conflict, Catmull came up with these 2 amazing metaphors. On one side, you've got the ugly baby, our fragile new idea. And on the other side, you have the hungry beast. The beast is the operational machine of the company. It's the schedules, the marketing plans, the budgets, all the stuff that demands finished products to feed the pipeline. Now, the beast isn't evil. You need it. It's what gets movies made and into theaters. But here's the danger. The beast is always hungry, and it wants something predictable and finished. It can't tell the difference between a genuinely bad idea and a good idea that just isn't finished yet. So if you're not careful, the beast will just gobble up the ugly baby every single time. The real art of management at Pixar became about keeping these 2 powerful forces in balance. So how do you actually do that? How do you protect the babies from the beast? Well, Pixar developed its most legendary tool, the Braintrust. Now, this is not your average feedback meeting with a bunch of executives. It's a group of their most experienced directors and storytellers who get together to watch early versions of a film and just talk. But it only works because of these very specific and frankly radical rules.
First, it's a room of peers, smart people who've all been in the hot seat themselves. Second, and this is so important, the feedback is always about the project, not the person. They're there to help solve the film's problems, not to judge the director. Third, and this one is a mind blower for most companies, the Braintrust has zero authority. The director can listen to every single note and then walk out and ignore all of it. This removes all the politics, and finally, the whole thing runs on total candor. Frank, honest, but constructive conversation isn't just encouraged, it's required. And this quote right here, this is the psychological foundation that makes the entire Braintrust possible. It is the absolute bedrock. If you believe deep down that I am my idea, then any criticism of that idea feels like a personal attack on you. Your walls go up. But if you can separate yourself from your work, if you can see your idea as a thing that exists outside of you, then suddenly feedback isn't a threat anymore. It's a gift. It's data. This is what creates psychological safety. It's what lets a director hear that their baby is ugly without feeling like they are a failure. It's a huge mental shift, from protecting your ego to working together to make the idea better. Okay, so you've created a safe space for the new idea to be born. But what about the journey? What about all the wrong turns and dead ends? Most companies are absolutely terrified of failure. They do everything they can to avoid it. Pixar, on the other hand, learned how to harness it. This next section is all about how they turned failure from something to be ashamed of into their single most powerful tool for learning and getting better. I absolutely love this quote from Andrew Stanton, the director behind Finding Nemo and Wall-E. It sounds totally backwards, doesn't it? Be wrong as fast as you can. But he's not saying try to fail. What he means is that standing still, paralyzed by indecision, is way worse than making a wrong move. It's all about learning as aggressively as possible. Look, if an idea is flawed, isn't it better to find that out today instead of 6 months and $1 million from now? It's about creating momentum. Stanton says it's like sailing a ship. The crew needs to feel like they're moving. Even if the captain has to change course a few times, it's way better than just drifting aimlessly. Failure isn't the point, but it's an unavoidable part of the price you pay for doing something original. And if you want to see what being wrong as fast as you can looks like in the real world, look no further than the movie Up. Its journey was not a straight line. I mean, check this out. It started as a story about two warring princes on a floating castle. Then in the next version, it had an old man named Carl, but he landed his house on a Soviet spy blimp. After that, they got to the jungle, but there was this whole complicated plot about magical bird eggs that made you live forever. Each one of these was a failure, right? A creative dead end. But each failure taught them something crucial. It took them years of being wrong to finally strip everything away and find the simple, powerful, emotional heart of the movie we all know and love. That final masterpiece was literally built on the rubble of all these earlier attempts. This really breaks it down into two different mindsets. On one side, you have the over-planners. These are the folks who believe that if they just strategize enough and whiteboard enough and make the perfect plan, they can avoid failure completely. The problem is, you can't plan for problems you can't even see yet. And trying to plan everything often just leads you to do something safe and unoriginal, because it's easier to plan what's already been done. On the other side, you have the experimenters. This is the Pixar way. They just dive in. They build something, they test it, they see what happens, and they learn from it. They see failure as a necessary part of discovery. It's like the difference between trying to write the perfect first sentence of a novel for weeks versus just getting a messy first draft down on paper that you can actually start fixing. The experimenters find the right answer faster because they're not afraid of finding the wrong ones first. Now, this next part is really fascinating because it tackles a much trickier kind of problem. I mean, it's one thing to fix a problem you can see, but what about the problems that are completely invisible? Every company has them. Hidden power dynamics, unspoken rules, flawed beliefs that are killing creativity, and nobody even knows it. This section is about how Pixar learned to make the invisible visible. Sometimes the biggest roadblock is hiding in plain sight. This story about the conference table is just a perfect metaphor for this. For years, Pixar's top creative leaders held their meetings at this long, elegant, rectangular table. Ed Catmull and John Lasseter always sat in the middle. They thought they were running these open, collaborative sessions, but they were totally blind to what the table itself was communicating. It was creating a power structure. People sitting at the ends felt less important, and they spoke up less. And the leaders in the middle had no idea.
They only figured it out by accident when they had a meeting in a different room with a square table, and suddenly the conversation was more vibrant and inclusive. It's such a powerful reminder that our physical environment can shape our behavior in ways we don't even notice.
Here's another one of Catmull's deep, counterintuitive ideas. We all have that saying, right? Hindsight is 20/20. Well, he argues that's not just wrong, it's a dangerous lie. We think we see the past clearly, but we don't. Our memory is a storyteller. It takes the messy, random, chaotic reality of what actually happened and it cleans it up. It creates a neat, tidy narrative that makes perfect sense, but it's not what really happened. And when we learn from that false story instead of the messy reality, we learn the wrong lessons. It prevents us from ever seeing the true root causes of why we succeeded or failed.
So you've got your Braintrust. You're trying to feel faster. You're looking for hidden problems. But how do you know if any of it is actually working? How do you fight off that complacency that always creeps in with success? Well, a few years in, Pixar decided to do something truly audacious. They put their entire culture under a microscope with a massive, company-wide experiment. It was a huge stress test of everything they believed in. They called it Notes Day. Just try to imagine this at your company. For one entire day, all normal work stopped. No animation, no coding, no meetings about deadlines or budgets, nothing. The only job anyone had, from the janitors to the president, was to help fix the company. They broke up into hundreds of small groups to talk about what was broken, what was frustrating, and how they could make it better. It was basically one giant company-wide Braintrust meeting designed to drag all those hidden problems out into the day. And the result? I mean, this number just says it all. 1,059. That's how many people voluntarily showed up to participate. This wasn't a top-down mandate. It was an explosion of engagement from the bottom up. And it proved one of Catmull's most fundamental beliefs. People don't want to just be cogs in a machine. They are desperate to help solve the hard problems. They want to feel a sense of ownership. That turnout was all the proof he needed.
Notes Day wasn't just a big group therapy session. It was a total cultural reset. It made a huge company feel small and connected again. It proved that giving people a structured way to be candid isn't destructive. It's incredibly cathartic. It lets people turn their frustrations into constructive solutions. And most importantly, it rebuilt trust by showing that leadership was really, truly listening. The changes that came out of it were real, they were immediate, and they came from the employees themselves, which is why they actually stuck.
So after exploring this whole incredible journey, the real question is, what does this all mean for us? How can we take these lessons and actually apply them to our own jobs, our own teams, our own creative lives? This last section is all about turning these big ideas into a practical toolkit you can start using, well, tomorrow. Because as Catmull would say, the best stuff is always in the unmade future. This table right here boils it all down into simple, actionable habits. First, the Braintrust. You can build your own version. Set up regular, honest feedback meetings, where the #1 rule is that you critique the idea, not the person. And the person receiving the notes has all the power. Second, dailies. The habit here is to show early and show often. Create a routine where people share unfinished work. This makes being vulnerable normal and dramatically speeds up your learning cycle. Third, postmortems. When a project is done, don't just pop the champagne and move on. Do a real deep dive into what worked, what didn't, and what you learned. And crucially, use that time to talk about any resentments or frustrations so they don't leak into the next project. Finally, fail faster. Set up cheap, low-stakes ways to experiment. Can you build a quick prototype instead of a full product? Can you run a small test instead of writing a massive plan? It's all about shifting your mindset from preventing failure to accelerating discovery. We're going to end with this killer quote from Andrew Stanton again, because it just perfectly captures the entire spirit of Creativity Inc. The creative process is the storm. It is the uncertainty, it is the chaos, and the unexpected waves. Trying to make something new and original while avoiding all risk and discomfort, that's not just impossible, it misses the entire point. It's like wanting to be a sailor who never leaves the harbor. The whole adventure is navigating the storm, adapting to the unexpected, and finding your way through the waves. And so we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Your best work, your team's greatest achievements, They don't exist yet. They are out there in an unmade future, and getting there takes more than just talent. It takes a culture built on trust, on candor, and on resilience. It means protecting your ugly babies, learning from your failures, and having the guts to challenge your own assumptions. So the real question is this: are you building a culture that's trying to avoid the waves, or are you building one that has the courage to sail right into the heart of the storm? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.